Hi everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. We are here at rather wonderful Sunset Sound. This is Studio 3, otherwise known as the Prince Room. Prince lived basically in the room over there. He had a bed set up in there for about 3 years, and I believe he made 3, possibly 4 albums here, 2 of which are 1999, of course, Purple Rain. So some of his greatest stuff was recorded here. Our friends at Denise Audio have come up with another great plugin. What I like about their plugins thus far are, number one, the obvious thing, they sound really, really good. But number 2, they haven't wasted time coming up with graphics that are just there to like go, wow, cool, how retro. The point is everything is super functional. They're very, very pragmatic. I will say before using this plugin, we watched the video on their site. One of the few plugin videos that I've actually seen that by the time of watching the whole thing, I had a massive understanding. It's just a few minutes long, but they take you through every single detail on it. I feel like this is something that I like about these guys and girls. I feel like they have done something where they're not worrying about trying to be cool and look like a vintage piece of equipment, or they're not even doing lots of bells and whistles and lights and whatever. It's all focused on features, actual features that you might use. So this plugin, you may ask, what is it called? It's called God Mode. It's a saturation plugin, but it's not a saturation plugin like we've used before. This saturation plugin is very tunable, to say the least, and we'll go through that in a second. It's come across as really musical because it has these 3 different areas of saturation. You've got this first one, tape, then you've got warp, and then you've got buzz. And as you can see, you can have all 3 on. The tape is actually one of their emulations of tape. I think it's called Bad Tape, which is apparently a very popular plugin. The warp is a little bit more intense, and then the buzz is just like absolutely insane. So you've immediately got 3 completely different types of saturation in there. You've got low and high pass filter over here, which is, as you can see here, is pre, meaning this is what's going into the saturation. So I can shape, I could maybe take a certain frequency point and then just feed that through. Then post, over to the right-hand side, you can shape it, the returning signal. And then like all great plugins, it has a mix control, which is, of course, absolutely wonderful because we can go absolutely crazy on it, destroy all the mid-range, and then go, let's have a little less than that. However, they also have this other feature in here, which they're calling like this push-pull feature. So it means if I decide to like take a frequency and boost it here, this is what I'm deciding to saturate. So I'm choosing a frequency, and as you can see, I'm focusing it, I'm saying whatever it might be, and that's the area being saturated. The pull control, as you can see below, either allows me to really go for it and hit it hard, or just bring it back. So it's quite interesting. There's like lots of ways of controlling the amount of saturation and how it's affected, because obviously it's creating all these additional harmonics, etc. Another thing, so obviously gain makeup over here, you know, to if you're reducing some stuff or you're skinning it down, whatever, you know, you can make up the gain. That's all great. But this is an interesting function, the dry and wet control. You can split the signal by hitting up here. And if you split it, you can actually, and you see when I split it, it went to 50-50 on the mix. Why would that be? Well, it went to 50-50 because it's 50% dry, 50% wet. And I can have that panned. So I can take a sound and create a stereo image, because I might have the dry signal over to one side and then the saturated twisted on the other, giving a mono signal a chance of doing something a little crazy. One other thing we didn't talk about was the random here, where it will pick random frequencies here. And look, if I just keep pressing it, it does all kinds of silliness there. So it reminds me of like a 80s video game. I'm expecting something come over it. Oh, and the sidechain function here on the tape. I've got a song up here which is actually recorded live in this room by the band we've been tracking here with Daryl Thorpe over the last couple of days. And this was actually something I did a few years ago. I did 10 songs in one day. And the drum sound is kind of crappy on the kick. Something was going on here. And I didn't really get the low lows that I wanted out of the kick. The kick in mic, I think, was like it was hitting something inside, so it's pretty bad. So I'm going to stick this on the kick drum and see if I can shape it and distort it, saturate it, and create something more interesting than what I've got. As you can see, all of the plugins have been turned off. So the only plugin now on these two kick elements, no sample, just the kick in and the kick out, is the God mode, Denise Audio God mode. So let's find a section of kick here. All mid-range, all ugly. Let's turn all that off for a second. You know, let's go into some of the low-lows. So what's interesting is I can choose an EQ point like 60 here, go crazy. Turn the mix up. I'm just immediately doing what I wanted to do. It's really ugly down there, and I just wanted to kind of get those low lows and saturate it. So there I'm going completely over the top. Very tempted actually to initially take this now and put it on just the FET side of it, which is the outside kick mic. Bypass. That's nice. Now I can shape that going in, so maybe I'll just high pass at like 20 or 30. Just shape it a little bit down here. Maybe low pass the output here. Really nice idea. So now I've only got like 20 to 112, like just that area playing. Let's throw in the other mic. Already better. So what I've done is I've taken that 60 area and like saturated it, hit it super hard. Now it's thumping, it's even. Because the thing about saturation, of course, is it's taking transients and like shaving them off. So it's a poor man's way of compressing as well. That was the beautiful thing about tape. As we used to slam the tape, particularly on kick drums and bass guitar, I'd always hit my tape far too hard, and all those transients get nicely rounded off. There'd be tons of low end from the tape, but there would also be, you know, a little bit of tape saturation in there. Let's go and turn that up. Interesting. I got up too much. All the low end's disappearing. So as I'm hitting it harder, I need to bring up my gain makeup. There you go. Wow. That's pretty tasty. All right, let's bring that down. Take the makeup down. Let's go to the warp. Wow, yeah, it's already greater. Bypassed. All right, I can see this is already going to be really, really exciting and interesting. So I'm honestly already much better drum sound on the kick. And what's interesting about that is I had multiple plugins going on to do some of the kind of things that I'm doing there really quickly. So let's just move on. That was just something to do on the kick. One of the things I like about controlling the areas of saturation is in room mics, where, you know, drummers are maybe overplaying their cymbals. So let's take here, we'll go to the high room mics, we'll turn off. You can see what I'm doing is I'm using lo-fi here. I'm introducing a bit of saturation on my lo-fi, taking all of those features off. I'll put the deverb over here for a second. So I'm going to grab the Denise audio. Everything's bypass mode. Let's have a listen. There you go. So that warp's doing exactly what I wanted to do. So interesting, I've got a little bit of the tape, a little bit of the warp. So what's happening now with the warp is I'm pushing into it. I've gone to this high mid area here. I just used my ear, so I don't even know what I selected. Oh yeah, over here I can see. So I'm about 4K. Let's just take this area where the cymbals are playing twice. Wow. Go back to tape. It's the warp that's working really well. Bypass it. It's adding so much aggression in there. Low pass. Very interesting indeed. So I love how I can just get in there and do that. I'm wondering now, I might try the exact reverse of what we're doing. So we've had some fun, like taking those high mids and using the warp to kind of soften it a little bit. But actually, to be honest, I think I'd like to hear doing the reverse. So maybe coming in. So what I've done is I've actually gone low now on this room mic. And I've got that kind of mid-range on the snare. So I'm actually doing the reverse, and I'm gonna... Now it's rebalancing because now the cymbals are being ignored and the saturation is being employed on the kick, like at about 100. I can maybe go a little bit lower. Let's just do that without even listening, just for the heck of it. So now I'm going to go down to 60 and I've still got 800, 1K on the snare. So those are being hit hard and saturated. Listen. Bypass. Pretty tasty. So now what's happening is just rebalancing everything because we're saturating and smashing those two areas. I'm actually going to make it even worse. Let's really go crazy on it. Bypass. Pretty tasty. Now I'm going to put the reverb plugin I had on afterwards on it and really exaggerate those room mics. It's a pretty tasty tool. Take it off. Boring. Super exciting. Saturation plugins, each time we review stuff, people are just pushing the boundaries really heavily. If you go to their website, the track they're using there, they have a really cool girl singer singing over like programmed elements. And it was really interesting because they're, one of the things that we've been talking a lot about with saturation plugins is people are looking for ways to take very normal, uninteresting samples that we all have access to, like the same piano that we all have, the same whatever. And I think this is sort of taking it to the next stage because we can go in there and take specific frequencies. We just, of course, reviewed a plugin a couple of days ago, which is taking transients and tuning them to EQ points. So taking EQ points and making those really aggressive. Now we have that almost same methodology of but doing it in frequencies. Really, really smart. All right. I love what it's doing there. Any tool that I can quickly utilize is always going to make me happy. Let's have a listen to the bass, actually with the drums. In that section. Remember, this is live and trashy. I mean, how live and trashy can you get? Cool. The bass is very sloppily played. Like I said, 10 songs in a day. I'm going to take off everything that's on the bass here, and we're just going to play the actual recording. So take that one DI off. Playing super, super aggressively. This particular song, I remember what he did. We were talking about it earlier. He had a regular passive bass, and between takes, he reached over and plugged in an active bass. So what ended up happening is the amp got hit harder. This is like between takes of the same song. We did like 3 takes, and in the middle of, on beginning of take 2, he just quickly changed over bass, started playing, and we're like, what's going on? By which point we're already a few bars in, and we did the full take. But as you can see, it meant that the DI was slammed, it was hitting the mic pre too hard, it was hitting the compression. Let's see if I can rescue it. Let's see if I can do something exciting. Let's have a listen to just the DI. Hear that extra distortion? It's not a terrible sound, but that wasn't what I was printing on other songs, which is super clean. So let's grab the plugin. I'm loving this. So now what I've done is I've saturated the lows. I've gone about 80 to 100, which is pretty standard for me on the low lows on the DI. And I'm low passing and controlling the high frequencies above. I'm really, really tempted to just do the exact opposite now on the bass. Amp. So let's grab the amp side, and I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to high pass going in. That's insane. That's probably far too much, but it's kind of cool. Put 2 together. Far too much. That's why we love it. But it's a bratty, disgusting bass tone. Do you made it a good bratty, disgusting bass tone? Let's have a listen. I am I'm going to just turn on an MV2 only at the end. Yeah, it's cool. It's you know, this is supposed to be a disgusting rock band, just like going for it. I mean, we could spend some more time, but what we've done is we've created the EQ moments, you know, by using high and low pass filtering, and then just grabbing, you know, here, high mids and mid range and hitting them hard, distorting them. You know, I feel like I want to go crazy. That's really good. Totally overdriven. And soloed, it's just noise and disgusting and horrible, but in the track, I really like it. Horrible, disgusting rock and roll the way we love it. The last thing I want to do is let's open up something cleaner sounding. I don't know, let's hit the Rhodes. It's too pretty. Let's go to the vocal.
It's been such a long time. She took my...
Take this section here. You know why I want to do this? I want to stick it on the end of the chain and I want to hear the buzz mode. I want to hear the completely over-the-top vocal sound. And why the heck not?
It's been such a long time, a gypsy woman running through my mind. It's been such a long time, give me a kiss and then left me behind.
Whoa.
It's been such a long time, a gypsy woman running through my mind. It's been such a long time, give me a kiss and then left me behind. It's been such a long time, a gypsy woman running through my mind. It's been such a long time, give me a kiss and then left me behind. It's been such a long time, a gypsy woman running through my mind. It's been such a long time, give me a kiss and then let me behind. It's been such a long time, a gypsy woman running through my mind. It's been such a long time, give me a kiss and then let me behind. It's been such a long time, a gypsy woman running through my mind.
I mean, it's pretty evident when you put it on, but you can see I'm just sort of tuning it. I want some more low mids in there. I want to kind of thicken it up a bit. So I turn the pull control down so it's hitting it a little bit harder. Obviously the mix at 50-50 at the moment. We could slam it.
It's been such a long time, a gypsy woman running through my mind. It's been such a long time, give me a kiss and then let me behind. It's been such a long time, oh, she's leaving. Yes, she's leaving me. Oh, she's leaving. She's a gypsy. Yeah, yeah.
It's really interesting because I really wonder from the days of when we were exclusively working in analog, whether it be, you know, beautiful tube microphones, great consoles like this, tape machines, etc., etc. You know, there was less tools, there was less parametric EQs, if at all. It was all fixed point EQs, and some of those records still are some of the best sounding albums ever. Obviously, SSLs came in the late 70s and really changed the mixing game, and you could get in and do beautiful detailed stuff. But so many great records that we love were done on Neves and APIs with fixed EQ points. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think to myself, you know, the sort of restriction, you could apply that with using this plugin. I don't know how many instances we could put on here, and we've already got like 5 or 6 going. And the reason why I say that is because you could really use this as a saturation tool to enhance things, roughen them up a little bit, but use less EQ as a result. Because you saw what I did with the kick drum is like I drove it because the elements of the kick drum weren't very good. The bass, they weren't very good. These weren't very well recorded. The bass player put an active bass in the middle of a freaking recording and totally smashed the mic pre's. The kick drum, the inside mic was like hitting something, so it's going plop, plop, plop. It had been knocked. Probably somebody got up and knocked it in the middle of the performance. All of these things happen when you're doing 10 songs in one day. And the saturation really helped solve some of that stuff for me. But I was using it like as an EQ saturation, which of course what the God mode is. So let's, I suppose let's see, just for schnitz and schniggles, what we can do. The spec on this computer, for instance, got 32 gigabytes of RAM, 6 core, 3.33. It's a Mac Pro from 2012. This is an 8-year-old computer with 32 gigabytes of RAM. So it is not new. Most of you are probably, at least half of you, are using much better computers than this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, we've got 20 instances of this plugin playing now on 32 gigabytes of RAM on an 8-year-old computer. Obviously, we haven't tweaked them or anything. We're just seeing if it plays. Because people ask me this all the time. They're like, well, how many instances can you use? And I haven't done this test before, really. We've used it maybe 8 or 9 times on a mix to demonstrate you can use it. But now we just applied another 4 or 5. We're at about 25, 30 uses. I mean, we're getting crazy here. Okay, so obviously you could use this on most of your tracks on a mix, especially if you're bussing and you've got guitars. So pretty remarkable. So this could be that tool. That could be that tool that maybe you've got a lot of virtual instruments, especially with modern virtual instruments. They come in pretty freaking perfect. The bass line is even, especially like some of these key sounds now, they're so good. The piano's like beautifully recorded. And of course you can go in there with the MIDI and you can make everything even. You don't have to use tons and tons of compression to, like, you know, make these things sound perfect. You can do that in the MIDI side of it. You've got something here that you could use to EQ and saturate and shape a mix like that. And with like the 30 plus kind of instances that we have here, we know it could be done. So it's very exciting thing. The only thing we haven't yet tried is, like, there's a sidechain function, there's a random, we looked at that. Sidechain, obviously you understand that, where you can, you know, send a specific frequency in there, you can key input from up here. All of these things are pretty normal. But the one thing I want to try out is that stereo function. So if I go in here,
such a long time, gypsy woman running through my mind. It's been such a long time. Give me a kiss and then let me be. Oh, she's leaving. Yeah, she's leaving me.
That's interesting. So yeah, you can have some serious fun with this. I've really enjoyed where people have been going on saturation plugins. I love some of the really over-the-top insane ones. I get the feeling they've specifically designed this for what we're using it for, as a musical tool to get in there and really help you mix. Not just go, oh, I'm going to saturate this. Do I want it to be bright or dark? No, this is specifically about picking certain frequencies and pushing and pulling them. I did like where we first went on this idea of the kick drum and then the bass guitar to like actually use it to shape the EQ and saturate at the same time. I think this is going to get a lot of use from a lot of people. What's great about this plugin, we're just looking on Denise's website at the moment. It's 40 bucks. I mean, it's insanely cheap. Good people. Good people. Another hit it out of the park. Simple, easy to use, well designed, sounds good product. I'm having a really good time of working with plugins and demonstrating and reviewing plugins that actually sound good and don't bankrupt you. The fact that, you know, we opened up about 30 instances, and I'm sure we could do a lot more on a 8-year-old computer with 32 gigabytes of RAM. You know, I mean, that's a decent amount of RAM. Not everybody has that, but ultimately this is quite an old computer. So I'm sure many of you have much higher spec, and you will be able to use a lot of instances of this and really have some fun. I think for guys like me, that's maybe 80%, you know, organic instruments and 20% virtual, it's going to work great. And for those of you the other way around, there are 80% virtual instruments with only like maybe an acoustic guitar or a piano and a vocal, you're going to love it too. I think this is a win-win all around. An affordable, great sounding plugin that thinks outside of the box. Great work, Denise Audio. Enters to win below. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing, and we'll see you all again very soon. Maybe we'll still be at sunset, or I don't know. See you soon. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir.